I have found a new way to interpret Scripture that some of you might be interested in knowing, and I think it will help you tremendously in some of the things you may be having problems with. And it's called the method of assumption. And the way you do this is if you can't find something in the Bible that is valid, or you can't find something in the Bible that you believe to be true, just assume it to be true, and it's true. That's all you have to do. If there's something you can't find in the Bible or something you're trying to prove through the Bible and you can't do it, just assume it to be true. Such is the case with Ellen G. White. Now, I have mentioned numerous occasions that Christians were never held accountable for the Sabbath command of the Old Testament because they were not part of that Old Testament covenant, and that the Sabbath command was never renewed in the New Testament. I was reading an article in Review and Herald, May 16th, 1882, volume 59, number 20. And in this Review and Herald, there is an article in there called Will a Man Rob God? By Ellen G. White. Now, in this article, she says this. Remember, I've said on numerous occasions that the fourth commandment was never renewed in the New Testament. But listen to this now, the new way of interpreting scriptures through assumptions. And I quote from Ellen G. White in this article, Will a Man Rob God? And I quote, the New Testament does not reenact the laws of the tithe, and it does not that of the Sabbath, for the validity of both is assumed, end quote. In other words, she couldn't find any commandment in the New Testament where the Sabbath was ever renewed. So she comes up with a new method of interpretation called assumption. Let's just assume that it's there. What a heck of a way to interpret the Bible, through assumptions. But I found something else in here too that showed that this woman was not only a false prophet, but she was a false teacher as well. In this same article, on down several more paragraphs, it says this, and I quote, the Sabbath command being first announced to man in his sinless state in Eden. Hear that? End quote. Hear that? The Sabbath command, she's saying, was first announced to man in his sinless state in Eden. Now then, Seventh-day Adventist, if Ellen White was not also a false teacher, then there should be a command in Genesis for man to worship on the Sabbath. There should be a command in there on the Sabbath. Show me one verse in Genesis where anyone is ever commanded to keep the Sabbath or admit that Ellen White was a false teacher as well as a false prophet. Until next time, this has been God is saying, God bless.